All right, good morning, everybody. Actually, we stepped up a little higher up. That's right. So we left today's daf kuf nun dalid is today. We left off at the bottom of kuf nun gimel amud beis. Just hopefully everyone can hear me. So we left off. We were talking about mechamer. Person was walking, and then all of a sudden he finds himself. He didn't get home in time for Shabbos. And he's traveling with stuff. So his number one option is to go ahead and give it to a guy, as a person is not commanded on the shvisa of the guy, but he is commanded for the shvisa of his behema. And the number two option, if is no guy around, to go ahead and put it on the animal. So now the Gemara wants to then discuss in terms of the lav of mechamer, right? One is not allowed to go ahead and have his animal go ahead and walk and carry his stuff. So we described a scenario where there was no akira and hanacha in the same pace. In other words, you'd only put on the animal as it was walking, not when it was stopped and then it would move, because if he basically caused it to move, then it would be a violation of mechamer. So Zok the Gemara, Ami Amar Rabbi Merachama. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth wide line. So Amar Rabbi Merachama, Hamachamer Acha Behemto B'Shabbos B'Shoigi Chayiv Chatas B'Meizid Chayiv Skila. Says Rabbi Merachama, it's your typical regular halacha that if you do a b'shogeg, you're chayiv chatas, and if you do a b'meizid, then you're chayiv skila. If a person, if he got warning not to do before and he does it anyways, and he brought the beis din, so beis din can put it to death through skila. So my timer, what's the reason? So says the Gemara, the pasuk says lo yisasek hamlacha ata u'emtecha. So it says you and your animal are both. So it says behema dumi d'dite. Mahu b'shogeg chayiv chatas b'meizid chayiv skila. Behemto nami b'shogeg chayiv chatas b'meizid b'shogeg chayiv chatas b'meizid chayiv skila. So just like, so it compares him and his animal. So just like if he does a malach on Shabbos, he's chayiv a b'shogeg chatas and b'meizid skila. So to the animal. And Amar Rava says no. Shtei tshuvas b'davar. Two issues. First of all, Chad the Pasuk says Tarach hasi lechem lechol oiseh b'shgaga v'hanefesh asher taseh b'yad roma. So it says over there by avodas kechavim. So it says there will be one Torah, one rule, one law, right? When it comes to someone doing something b'shogeg, right? So it says over there, and huksha kol Torah kula avodah zara, and basically the Torah is compared to avodah zara. So just like by avodah zara, he's doing a ma'isa with his body, and knows he himself is doing it. So to over here, a person's only chayiv chatas if he does it begufe, right? But if his animal does it, it's not he himself; it's his animal. So therefore, l'chayra, he shouldn't be chayiv chatas. Furthermore, we also learn hamachal Shabbos. One is chayiv Shabbos, but davar shemachayivin al shkaso chatas v'al zadono skila. So he says the person's chayiv if he's chayiv if he does something b'shogeg, he's chayiv chatas. So on that, if he does it b'meizi, if he does it on purpose, then he's chayiv skila michlal. So you can further diika midei de'ein chayivin al shkaso chatas, right? The loy al zadono kares. It sounds over there only. It says if you do a malacha only if it's your chayiv b'shogeg, then you're chayiv b'meizid skila. Sounds like there are those that you can be mechalel, that even though you're doing b'shogeg, you're not chayiv chatas. So it sounds like there's another group of mitzvahs on Shabbos that one would not be chayiv for. So what is that? V'lo ma'inihu lav de mechamer. Isn't that referring to mechamer? In other words, that there has to be a category of stuff that you can do b'shogeg chayiv chatas, like your regular, your regular malachos, and your chayiv a chatas. But there's another category of stuff that you do b'shogeg. They're not chayiv chatas. So what could that be? So maybe isn't that mechamer? So we see that maybe mechamer, a person leads his animal to go ahead and carry for him on Shabbos. He's not chayiv if he does b'shogeg. He's not chayiv to bring a chatas. So Gemara says no. Lo gives two suggestions. Lo tchumen v'alibi Rabbi Kiva. No, first we can say maybe it's the violation of tchumen. A person travels outside of tchum. Maybe that is what's referring to, that a person does b'shogeg is not a chatas, or if you have havara v'alibi Rabbi Yosi, or havara, right? So we know when it comes to kindling a fire, it mentions not to do any malachas, and then it singles out havara. So there's this child in the Gemara we saw earlier. Why was havara singled out? So according to one opinion, the opinion of Rabbi Yosi, it was that the reason why Havara was singled out is to teach you that Havara is kindling a fire. If you start a fire, is unique. That if you do b'shogeg, you're not chayv v'chatas, and that's the one it's referring to. Fine. Now, Rav Zvid Masni Hachi, he actually learned that which this discussion about Mechamer a little differently. So at top of Kuf Nun Daled Amud Aleph, top of today's daf. So Rachama HaMechamer Acher Behem B'Shabbos B'Shogeg Eino chayv v'chatas B'Meis chayv skila. One who goes ahead and he leads his animal right on Shabbos. If he does b'shogeg, he's not chayv v'chatas, but if he does b'meizid, it's chayv v'skila. In other words, so the two are not linked. Till now, we've only saw opinions that's linked. In other words, if you're chayv v'shogeg v'chatas, then automatically chayv v'skila. Here we see that despite the fact, right, that you're not chayv for a chatas, right, if you do it b'shogeg, if you do it accidentally, but if you do it purposely, then you're chayv v'skila. So, Rav has kasha according to this version of Rav Zvid. Hamachal the Shabbos b'davar shachayim nashkaso chadas chavin asadon skila. Ha ein chavin alav shkaso chadas ein chavin asadon skila. He says, what do you mean? According to this brisa, the chayr they go hand in hand. In other words, it's automatic. If you do it, if it's something that if you did a b'shogeg, you're chayiv to go ahead and bring a chadas, then it must be that you're chayiv skila for doing it purposely. So Gemara says, "Miktani ha'ein chayvin." Who says it works both ways? Maybe it works the other way. Something that you're chayiv to bring a chatas, that you're chayiv to go ahead and if you do it b'meizid, then you're chayiv skila. However, but there are still things that even though you're not chayiv chatas, you're still chayiv skila for. And what is that referring to? That is right. What is that referring to? That's referring to, so mind you, Mechamer, that's referring to Mechamer, right? That's referring to leading one's donkey. Then one is chayiv in such a case that even though he's not chayiv b'shog, if he does b'shog, nevertheless, he is chayiv skila. And Rava achve de Rav Mari bar Rachel. So Rava is a different Rava than the Rava we normally discuss. So he was the brother, right, of Rav Mari bar Rachel. Right now, Rav Mari bar Rachel, right? He was called Rav Mari bar Rachel because he was the son, right, of a convert. So he was a son of a convert who later converted. But when his mother, I guess, became his mother, he was not a Jew at the time. So they named him after his mother, not his father. If then some say it was who? Some say Avua. That Rava was Avua to Rav Mari bar Rachel. That Rava was the father of Rav Mari bar Rachel. In other words, Rava was the spouse of Rav Mari. And Lishna Basra, according to the last lashon, that he was the father. However, Kasha Hod Rav Akshrei Rav Mari bar Rachel, he actually a little shver because Rav actually had a special. He permitted, right? He appointed him a leader in Babel. In other words, they didn't allow one who was not basically a convert to go ahead and be one of the appointed leaders in Babel. So Rav made a special rule for Rav Mari. So, but if Rava was indeed his father, so he wouldn't have had to make a special rule. So according to this version, that Rava was the father of Rav Mari, it would have been difficult. But anyway. What does this lead into? It says, Dilma Trey Mari Barachel Havi. Maybe there's two different Rav Barachels. One was the one that Rav was matered him. The one was the one that who was and that person was the one who became the leader, and the other one was just somebody who was the son of Rava. But anyways, Havi Masni Lo Hashmaitza. He actually, instead of Rav Zvid's version, he had his own version. Mishmed Rav Yechan leave Torah. In other words, to say that you're actually pater for a case of Mechamer. What was the case? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mechamer Acher Behem Tel B'Shabbos, Pater Mikulam. One who goes ahead and he's Mechamer, his animal on Shabbos, so he's pater from all of them, right? And why is that? So Amar Rabbi so it says over there. Sorry about that. In here, I just got a phone call. All right, fine. So he says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mechamer B'Shabbos Pater Mikulam. B'Shogeg Mechayev Chadas, D'Huksha Koter Kol Avodah Zarah. So why is he pater from everything? So if he does it B'Shogeg, then it's similar to Kol Torah Kula. Right, the Huksha called her Kula Avodah Zarah, and similar to Avodah Zarah, that he would not be Chayv Chadas. Amazing, I'm a little Chayv. That's not, and also amazing, he's not Chayv Chadas. Why? That's not Hamachal is the Shabbos. So in other words, by Avodah Zarah, we say that it's something to Avodah Zarah that you have to do with his body, and by Mechamer, you're not using your own body. So therefore, that's the reason why you're pater from a chatas you do b'shogeg, and if you do it b'meizer chalshas b'davar shechayv and he says that's not hamachalas the Shabbos b'davar shechayv in ashkas chatas. If one is so, therefore, if one is chayv chatas, then he's chayv skila. But in this case, But in this case, if he's not chayv for a chatas, it's just said because he didn't do it with his body like a budazara. So therefore, ein chayvin al zadonos. Therefore, he's not chayv for. And belav nami lo mechayv, and also even for a lav. Now, so normally this person violates a loisa say in the Torah. So if the regular loisa say in the Torah says you should not do something, and you. But over here, he's not chayv malchus. Why? For making his having his animal carry for him. Why? Because this is considered to be a lab that is given for an azar of Mises Basin. What does that mean? So in other words, whenever in the Torah has a rule that says you're going to be killed for doing so and so, right? For being Machal Shabbos. So you need a warning in the Torah, right? You need a warning. So sometimes if there's just a warning, do not do something. Right? So if it's not attached with any other punishment, that do not do automatically becomes a violation where you get malchus. But if it's something that there's already stated a punishment for, and which would be a misas of basin, the basin can put you to death for it. So therefore, that which it says don't do it, that don't do it. That warning is basically the warning for the misas of basin. So therefore, this violation, this law of the Torah, right? By Shabbos is considered to be a lav shenis in Lazarus Misas Basin, and therefore, such a case is the whole lav shenis Lazarus Misas Basin, and loiklav, and a lav that is attached for Misas Basin, you do not get malchus for. And viafilu, and even according to Lamademer Loikin, and even according to the Machloek, is actually whether this lav can actually be basically be twofold, apply both as a warning for Misas Basin, and also independently obligate a person to get malchus. Say, why doesn't the pasuk say, don't do malacha and your animal? In other words, you don't do malacha and so your animals. So ata lamali, but we know the pasuk says, ata, right? It says ata. Why does it say the word ata? It's already talking to you. What's the extra word ata? So ata lamali. To teach you that only he himself is chayiv for malchus, but if his animal would do malacha, then he's not chayiv malchus. So according to this version of Rav Mari Bar Rachel, this version is that one is mechamer, he's not chayiv, he would not be chayiv if he does b'shogi yechatas, he would not get Mises Basin, and he also wouldn't get malchus. Fine, two dots. Now we explained before a person gets, so let's say there's an animal around, so what he can do is have his animal carry his stuff, his wallet, whatever it is, or whatever he's carrying, go ahead into a chutzner, which one is allowed to go ahead and carry, and then the items that are not muksa, go ahead and take off the animal and put them down, and the items that are muksa, just go ahead and untie them, and those basically will fall down on their own. So now, says the Gemara, right, so Amar Rafuna, says Rafuna, Hai Sabamto to please Chuchis, Mevia Karam Vikistos, Minech Tachta, Umate Chavala Masaki Neiflim. So one who goes ahead and let's say he's carrying a glass, right? He's carrying glass. So obviously if you go ahead and untie and let the glass fall, it'll all break. So you can go ahead and carry and bring over there in the chutzner, you can go ahead and bring some pillows and cushions, and then go ahead and untie the ropes, and it'll fall down, and therefore they won't break. What do you mean? Our Mishnah seems to say that if it's glasses in most cases are not considered to be muksa, so why can't he just take them off the donkey and put them down? So he's talking about basically glasses that were used for bloodletting, right? And therefore those are basically gross and disgusting, and therefore that's muksa machmas mius. That's considered to be something which is muksa because it's gross, and therefore that's muksa, and therefore he can't just remove it with his hand. I understand, but we have a rule that a person can't be mevatel a kli. In other words, if something is usable on Shabbos, and I put a muksa item on that, and this kli, which is normally usable, it becomes a basis for a davar which is aser, and the basis itself becomes muksa. So how can you go ahead and be mevatel the cushions on Shabbos? You can no longer use the cushions because it's now considered to be a basis for the muksa items. The Gemara says no. The shlifi we're talking about over here we're talking, I know they're small, but they're small glass, and therefore you can go ahead and remove them, basically roll them off. A, they don't break, and B, you can roll it off gently, and therefore he's not being mevatel kli meichano. So meisvei aser kasha, very similar case. Haisa behemto tuna tevel vashishi. So a person was going ahead and he had an animal, and it was carrying tevel, or it was carrying something that he did not take trumas and meisers for. Vashishi is in glass. So it says over there, you can go ahead and basically untie it, and it's going to fall down, even though it's going to go ahead and break. So what do you mean? Before we said you're allowed to go ahead and bring pillows and cushions, and over here it's saying you can't even remove them, onto a pillow. You can't go ahead and bring pillows and cushions underneath it for them to fall upon. They just have to go ahead and fall on the ground. Our answer is Hassam bit cool. So over there we're talking about large pieces of glass. And large pieces of glass wouldn't be able to go ahead and roll off the pillow, and therefore, since you would be mevatel kli meichano, which you can't do, therefore you're basically untie it. And tikanami tani dumi the tevel, it says over there glass and tevel, and ma tevel delei chazile afachanami lei chazile. Just like tevel is something which is not useful on Shabbos because a person can't separate trumas and meisos on Shabbos, so therefore basically you're untithed produce on Shabbos is muksa because you have no use for it, you can't eat for it. So too, these large glass, which are used more for construction, those are also useless, and therefore that's the case. Well, my even though that they would break. So Malus Emojiv said that has to move Nami Chashashi. Maybe he said, okay, maybe for a hefsin muad, maybe for a small loss, right? He's losing money by having the glass break. Maybe we would allow him to go ahead and be bevatel kli meichano. So therefore, it says Kamash Malan, that he would not be able to go ahead and do that. He just had to untie it and let it crash down. So Tanya, we're done at Brisa. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai mir haisa behemto tuna shalif shatua. If a person, his animal was going ahead, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, right, if person's animal was carrying some tua, right, fruits or vegetables, once again, niach v'isho tachteha. What does he do? He takes it with his head, and he uses his head basically as leverage to have the stuff on top of the produce that was on the animal. He shouldn't go ahead and move it with his hands. He should go ahead and basically knock it off with his head. So in other words, what's the reason why? Because a person is commanded not to move it with his hands, but if he does basically with a shinui, right, basically does it with his head, which is a not normal way of moving the produce off the animal, then he's allowed to go ahead and do it. So the one time the donkey of Rabbi Gamliel came, Shabbos started upon him. He didn't have a chance to get in. He was still carrying the honey, and he didn't unload the donkey until Motzei Shabbos. And Motzei Shabbos, Motzei Shabbos, the animal died. So many questions. First question is, what do you mean? Honey is not muksa. And we learned that if a person was traveling, the Shabbos all of a sudden, started and didn't have a chance to get there, and so he can go to a safe place, to basically a chatzir, and then remove it because it's not muksa. So the Gemara answers over here that basically the honey went bad. The honey went bad, and therefore it wasn't edible anymore. And therefore, since it wasn't edible, it was muksa. So
I thought honey doesn't go bad.
What is it?
I thought honey doesn't go bad, doesn't spoil.
So I guess I guess whatever it was, maybe it was in the sun. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know. Right?
Maybe it just crystallized and you couldn't eat it then.
Right. Could be. Well, we'll soon see what it was useful for. We'll soon see. Right. So it says over there. So it says hidish chazi. So if that's the case, so why did he care about it? Like, why didn't he just, who cares? Let him unload it and lose it, right? So it says the chasicha de gamli, right? So basically for cuts or something of a camel, right? I guess for wounds, right? So, the wounds, I guess, for a camel, and therefore basically you go ahead and apply this type of, honey on it, and therefore perhaps it would be something that's, I guess still useful after Shabbos. And so why didn't you untie it and just let it fall down? So God says no. In other words, they'll break open, the honey will break open, and you lose it all. Okay, so go ahead and bring some pillows and cushions, let it fall on it. So God says no. They'll be, basically they would break on them and the honey would drip on them. Therefore, since you have this muksa honey on top of the pillows and you can't take it off on Shabbos, therefore you be mevatel kli meichano, and therefore you would basically being violating that is Durabanan. So it says, you could Sar Bali Chaim. What about Sar Bali Chaim, right? So why did he force the animal to go ahead and carry it the whole time? So the Gemara says, Ksaver Sar Bali Chaim Durabanan. It must be that according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, he held, or this is Rav Gamliel, I think this is Rav Gamliel, right? According to Rav Gamliel, he held that Sar Bali Chaim is only Durabanan. And therefore, since it's a Durabanan, it didn't override it. Had it been a Daraisa, then he would have obviously been obligated to go ahead and untie it and unload the donkey on Shabbos and violate the Rabbanan for the purpose of not violating the Raisa. But over here, since it's only the Rabbanan, therefore he didn't do anything, and therefore the animal died. And Abai Yashkele Larabba to come a Shavshele Lebre Agaba de Chamra. One time, Sabai found that Rabba, I guess his kid was going down the side of the side of a donkey, or on the back of the donkey, and I'm like, how are you using Balei Chaim? Right, you're using an animal on Shabbos. Isn't that the violation? The Rabbanan Samalei, Sudden Hain, but suddenly like Gazavi Rabbanan. No, it's only the side. It's not. I'm not actually using the animal. It's only the sides, it's the back side of the animal, and therefore it's not exactly using it like on top of the animal, and therefore that the Rabbanan were not Geyser. So Minah Temra. So where do we see that from? So let's look at our Mishnah. The Tanakh, our Mishnah says, so you can go ahead and untie right the load, and then the load falls down. Now the question is, how was the load on there? Right? My la bechevel givalki the havilid sudden. Right? The sudden goes the Rabbanan. Are we not talking about basically saddlebags are on the side, and therefore he has to go ahead and climb up onto the animal and then untie the saddlebags, and the saddlebags fall off on their own? So the Gemara says, no, loy bechevel al gavaki the loy havid sudden. No, maybe we're just talking about that it was on top, that the bags were not tied, or inami left it. Or it was like with a clip, he just had to undo the clip. He didn't have to basically go ahead to remove the saddlebags, climb onto the animal and get good leverage in order to untie it. Rather, he just, took off the clip and they fell down on their own, or it was basically untied already, and they just, allowed them to fall down. But either way, he didn't have to go ahead and climb on the sides of the animal.
Like the barrel, right? It's like when you cut a hole in the barrel, like before. So if it falls out on its own, it's fine.
Right, and therefore he's not right. He's not climbing upon. The whole thing was, how do you know you can't climb on an animal? So he's not. So you look at a Mishnah, he's allowed to go ahead and climb on to untie it. So he's not climbing on, right? Sometimes the animals, they're donkeys or even larger camels or something that much larger. So you'd have to, get up there. So he says, no, you don't even have to get up there. Just, a mere clip. You don't even have to climb up, and therefore there's no proof. So we want to bring another proof. Seisve asikashis the shtaim b'dei adam v'achas bilam. So going to Masechah Sukkah. If you have two walls that were man-made walls and one is in a tree, right? One, they used a tree. So basically it sounds to me like they had a board, right, up on a tree, and they used that as as the third wall. It says, Ksheirav ein olim b'yantif. You can't use it on yantif. I can't use it on yantif because you're using a tree. So my lav dachik be'ilan, the havi leit hutzadin, right? And is it not that they rested the schach on the third side on the tree, and therefore they're using the side of the tree, right? And we see over here that sadid and asurin, and we see that you're not allowed to go there in yantiv is because the side is asur. One says, no, no, actually it was not just the side of the tree; it was the top of the tree, right? They lowered down the tree. And they put the schach on top, directly on top of all the branches on the tree itself, not just the bark of the side. Right, and therefore the mashamish v'ilan is considered to be using the tree straight up and not just the sides of the tree. So ihachi, let's look at the sefer. It says if he went ahead and he had three walls that were built by man, and one of them was using the tree as the fourth wall, kshera, it is kasher olim b'yantif, and then you're allowed to use it on yantif. In other words, you're allowed to use the schach, which is supported by the tree, on yantif. Not either kafi of the ilan. If we're talking about putting the schach directly on top of the tree. Why can you go ahead and use the tree? So elamai, what are you going to say? It's southern, right? He used the side, so asurin. So if that's the case, it's on the side, so it's asurin. So therefore, nevertheless, it would be usur if you're using the sides. So if my own, if that's the case, why odin by yantif? Why can you go there in yantif? So lahasam, le'avasa paschal de ilan. Right over there, we're actually talking about they used the tree itself, right? Where they used the tree was very thick, and therefore, basically, they didn't go ahead and need to go ahead and rest the schach on it. Rather, they used like the tree was just thick and in its place. So standing here, ilan gufe doifen balmu. and the shavia, right? In other words, that basically just the thick foliage and the thick leaves of the tree was just a wall itself, and it wasn't actually supporting the schach, and it was just standing there. It was a daif and bialmu with the shavia. And Tikanami,
There's
yeah.
three besides that. So what's the difference?
The what?
3 walls on the sukkah besides this tree that has the 4th wall.
Right. So that's why we're saying it's motor to go in there, because it's actually not supporting the schach. That's
Only if the tree is supporting the schach, then it becomes an issue.
right, because then you're using sudden of the tree, either the tree itself, or if it's using the side, then we want to say, well, since the schach is resting on the tree, that's the case of sudden, and therefore be usher. So the Gemara says, and Dikanami Dikani Zakla, there's the rule, Kol Ilan Shanita Ilan V'Yachol Amad Ilan Labiyantiv. Any tree, right? If you remove the tree and the schach can still stand, then you can go in there and yantiv. So in other words, if it's resting on the tree, then it's usher. But if it's not resting on the tree, in other words, if you remove the tree and the schach wouldn't fall down, then you're allowed to go in there and yantiv. So my law about kamifli, let's say this is machlokes. Damar Savar Tzadin. So lema katana. That's his machlas tonight. Ain't no yantif. You can't use on Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon Meir olam b'yantif, and the other opinion holds that you can go in there and yantif. So my lab hakamifli. This is not machlokas. The ma'asavar tzadin asurim. One holds that in the case of when there's 2 walls plus the one, since it's tzadin, you're using the walls, therefore it's aser, and because the sides of the tree are supporting the schach, and there's aser. Ma'asavar, the one has you can go ahead inside and on yantif and use it. Ma'asavar, it's mutter. In other words, he holds that it's mutter to go and use on yantif because tzadin you're allowed to use the sides of trees or sides of animals. No, the kuli amot tzadin aser. Everyone holds that using the side of something is aser. But tzadin over here we're using the sides of sides. The mar savar tzadin asurim, mar savar tzadin mutarim. That this is considered to be tzadin. How so? Because right, the schach is resting on the side of the tree. And the side of the tree is the one supporting it. So therefore, it's the side to the side. So Rabbi Amar, no. He says, no. One who holds that using even the side of a tree can also use something which is using the side of the tree. In other words, the side to the side is aser, just like just the side is aser. Man the shari, the one who holds that the side is mutter, but tzadid shari. Nami shari nami tzadid, the one who says that even the tzadid is mutter, so to the sides are mutter. So we'll just finish. We'll try and get to the mission real quick. So Eisvei Rav Masharshi la Rava. So Rav Masharshi has a kasha. The Rava says nuts. A person takes a nuts yased, right? The Elon. A person goes ahead and he takes a stake and he goes ahead and puts it in a tree. Right, the talaba kalkula, and he goes ahead and he hangs over there a basket. He hangs over there a basket and he puts his eruv in there, right? And he wants to go ahead and put the basically use this the basket as the area for the eruv, and people can go ahead and take that from Shabbos. So lamalam yasar tfachim ein eruv eruv. If it's above 10 tfachim, then it's not an eruv. Why? Because then it's more than 10 tfachim over this area, and therefore one is not allowed to go ahead and remove it on Shabbos because it's a rishus hayachid above 10, right? And lamata me'asar tfachim eruv eruv. If it's below 10 tfachim, then since you're allowed to go ahead and use it. And what's the Gemara says? So Tama denies Yasab Elam. The only reason why we're saying there's a possibility of being able to use it is because it is a basket on a piece of wood in a tree. But let's say you just put you didn't use a stake. You just hung the basket on the tree itself. It sounds like it wouldn't be an eruv at all. Why? Because the basket is directly on the tree, and therefore you're using the tzadim, the sides of the tree, and one is not allowed to go ahead and use the sides of a tree on Shabbos. So it goes as I high tonic It appears like this Tana differentiates. If he's just using the sides, then it's aser. But if he's using the sides of the sides, then it's mutter. So we see it's not the same achloikas. In other words, it's just, a person doesn't hold. If he holds tzadin is mutter, tzadin is also mutter. And if tzadin is aser, then so too is tzadin is aser. He doesn't hold that, right? We see that this differentiates between tzadim or tzadim and tzadid tzadim. And our papa hacha bekakla the chuka askin. Over here, we're talking about actually a basket that is very sort of tight. The hadid chocolate eruv kamanai le'ilan is actually he would move the tree as he would remove the food from the basket. And since he would do that, koshash beilan gufe. Therefore, he's like using the tree itself. It's not just considered to be the tzadidin of the tree, he's actually using the tree itself because the entire tree is moving. The hilchas on the halach is tzadidin asurim, using the sides of a tree or the sides of an animal would be, or just of a tree, is asur, and tzadidin, but something, right? You want to use something which is attached to the side of a tree, that is mutarim, that is mutar. And Amar of Ravashi, Ashta Damisa Tzadin Asur. Now that we say that using the sides of the tree is asur, high darga the midagli. If you person has, let's say, a ladder, he wants to go up. He shouldn't go ahead and rest the ladder next to the tree. Right? Rather go ahead and put it on stakes that are next to the tree. And therefore, when he goes up, in other words, therefore he's not using the tree itself. He's actually using the ladder, right? Right? In other words, don't rest the ladder directly on the tree. Rest it on wood next to the tree. Because when it goes down, don't go ahead and use those stakes that are in the tree. Rather, go ahead and use the rungs of the ladder, which are not connected to the tree, and therefore one is not using the tzadidin of the tree. We'll stop here at the Mishnah. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbos, and 7 a.m. Mitzvah Shem will continue where we left off. So 7 a.m. Sunday morning. Everyone have a great Shabbos.